Welcome back, friends. Today I have 6 paintings for you in this quick video. Now, the reason there's 6 in here is because I was really pushing myself this day. I had to get at least 5 out or I was going to be behind. And I started my last one thinking, I just got to get this one done. And then I realized this is my 6th one. So this is a bonus one. So that was exciting. But the name of the game for me today, when I was doing these paintings, was just have fun, just enjoy and have fun. You know, I mean, I had enough pressure on me having to get 5 out, but still I decided I'm just gonna sit down. All I'm gonna do all day today is paint, and I'm just gonna fall into that process and enjoy it. And I started out thinking, maybe I'll just experiment with a bunch of night skies or space scenes today. So that's kind of where this one came from, and the next one as well. And then I wasn't really finding much of a challenge or as much enjoyment in them as I wanted, so I quickly moved on from them. But I promise to show you how to do space scenes and night skies, because I think that's something that a lot of people are going to request. And that little speckly sky there, I know that a lot of people are going to ask about that. And that was done with just water. I just sprayed a tiny bit of water onto the paper when it was almost dry. Once you've used watercolor for a little while, you start to be able to predict what's going to happen based on how wet the paper is. And I could tell that the paper was at the point where it was still wet, but there was no flowing water on the surface. And I knew that if I lightly sprayed it with a little bit of water, it was going to resist some of that paint away and leave kind of that speckled look. You can get a similar-ish look with salt, but it takes a little longer. I've never actually had success with the salt. I haven't done it a whole lot, but the couple times I have done it, I didn't really care for the way it looked, and it didn't really give me the salt crystal look that I've seen in other paintings, but I'm sure we'll try that again at some point. This one I thought was going to be a big old failure. Again, I wanted it to be a night sky, and then you can see my paint, that dark isn't really spreading real well. And that's because the paper was really wet, but the paint I was using was thick. So it had a lot more of the paint in it than the water. So when the paper's really wet and your paint is really thick, the paint's just going to sit there, and that's kind of what was going on. So I started out getting a little frustrated with it and thinking, well, I'm probably just going to toss this one and start something else. But then it started looking, you know, pleasing to me, so I kept going with it, and overall I like it okay. I was playing around with different resists in this one, you know, wiping paint out of the sky and dripping clean water onto it, and they all kind of resist the paint and give you a little bit of a different look. A little bit of gouache, kind of sprayed all over for some stars. It dries so transparent though that a lot of the stars end up disappearing into the sky. And I felt like I was just done with the sky paintings. I wanted to go back to some of those trees, kind of like the first one that I did. I just like the, you know, the color background there that kind of indicates a tree, then with another tree on top of it. So I was thinking about that, and I'm like, Okay, but the tree branches, the tree trunks that I put here, they're clearly not related to like this green mass in the background. That's clearly something in the distance. And if that's green, then why do these trees have no leaves? And then I realized that that's kind of that critical voice, that self-critical voice telling you, man, you're just really doing weird things. You're doing things wrong. And I decided I don't care if the mass in the background is unrelated to this tree, or if it doesn't make sense why that is green and full of leaves and these aren't. I thought, you know, I don't care. I enjoy painting this way. I really love the way it looks. I'm gonna do it anyway. And it doesn't have to make sense. It's art, not a science project. So yeah, I just went with it. And I noticed while I was doing these trees that there's a level of comfort that I've gained with them that I didn't have like when I did that first painting. I did a very similar technique, but I wasn't really sure, I don't know if I like that I still have these colors inside the tree trunks. Why are the tree trunks green? And I feel like in that very first painting that I struggled with the color of the tree trunks a little bit more, trying to make them a specific color. And in this one, I didn't mind the green in the tree trunks. I felt like it kind of helped pull it into the scene, right? I mean, everything else in the scene is green and kind of that orangey brown, so it was okay that the tree trunks were as well. I just focused on from here, adding a little bit more highlight to them and maybe a little bit more shadow. Also, the rocks on the ground made another appearance. I'm really, really loving painting rocks on the ground. And I feel like I'm still trying to develop my technique with them. You know, how I layer the colors, what colors I use, how I apply the paint, and trying to make the rocks look really dimensional. And rocks have all kinds of faces. You know, it's not just a highlight across the top edge. And so I'm trying to push myself to find where those faces of the rocks are and develop more dimensional rocks. So if you see there, it's not, you know, a white line across the top edge. It's okay if you pull that white line, that white area down toward you. That's going to help give the rock a little bit more mass. Another bit that I'm starting to notice is developing as part of my personal style with this. It's not something I'm doing intentionally to, quote, find my style like we talked about in the last video, but the way that I only apply color where I need it, where I want to say something. So, you know, almost 2/3 of this paper are blank. There's maybe not quite that much, but it's more than 50%. And you know, I think that a lot of people have a tendency, I've certainly had a tendency to feel like I have to cover every single surface with color and paint. And sometimes I feel like for me, that complicates things. And so I have just decided that I don't need to do that. I'm only going to put the color where I need the color. And if the vast majority of the canvas is blank, the vast majority of the canvas is blank, and that's fine. And here we have another one of those little grassy, clumpy, earthy, floaty bits. And while I was doing this one, I kept thinking, oh, I don't remember how I did that. How did I get to this point? How did I get to this point? How did I deal with this or that? And I considered going back and watching the video that I recorded that I showed you yesterday, where I did one of these to try and refresh my memory on how I did this or that. But I did not allow myself to. In fact, I didn't even look at that other painting at all. I think, have you ever had it happen where you do something the first time and it turns out awesome? And then the next time you think, well, I'm going to do it again. And you try to duplicate that and it does not turn out awesome. And I've certainly had that happen too. And for me, I think I've decided that part of why that happens sometimes is because I'm too focused on capturing the essence of the original. So in this one, I didn't. When I had to make a decision on how to do something, I just went with my gut instinct and did it. And I'm pretty sure that I did this one completely different from the way, or like the approach that I used on this one was completely different from the other one. But ultimately, I like it just as well. And I think that if I continue to do paintings in this style, with this, kind of concept, and just approaching each one fresh, I'm going to start developing a very specific technique for it. And I won't have to wonder, how did I do that before? Or I won't have to look at other paintings and try to, recapture something from that. If you are trying white gouache for highlights like what I'm doing and you've never used it before, just please be aware that gouache is not like acrylic paint. It will re-wet like watercolor. So even if the gouache is dry, if you go back over it with a wet brush, it's gonna re-wet and smear or mix with your paint a little bit. And that's not a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. If you're aware of it, you know how to, you can figure out how to control it, and you can make accommodations for it if need be. Now this next painting is where I kind of felt like my streak for the day was ending. I didn't have an idea, and then I kind of started going, and I was like, this looks like a really weird squashed green heart. And the more I messed with it, it just got to be a bigger squashed green heart, and I was not having it, not happy with it at all. And I think in the end, I love the way this painting turned out. So I just want to, I'm harping on that, but I want to keep harping on that. See it through. Just see it through. You don't know where something is going to end up. You could absolutely hate what is happening. You could think there's no way this is going to come out the other end looking decent. If you decide to stop, then it really won't turn out into anything good. But if you see it through, it might. And even if it doesn't, you're going to learn something and you might enjoy the process. So yeah, I ended up really liking this painting and how it turned out. And I allowed myself to just have the time to sit and make adjustments, do some experimentation, and just play and enjoy. And after all, that is the primary reason that I'm doing what I'm doing, is to play and enjoy, which directly leads to growing and developing as an artist. And like I told you before, that's my goal for myself. I want to keep learning, and I want to keep developing, and I want to get better and better and better at all of the things that I want to get better at. And that's really what I want for you too. I want to help you. Mr. Moon wants that for you too. We all want you to learn and grow and be the artist that you want to be. These tree trunks were weird for me. I didn't know exactly what to do with them until I started, and I really like the texture that I got on them. The tree trunks, they remind me of these trees that we have around here. I have no idea what kind of a tree they are, but they're really, really big trees, and then they get these like spiky balls on them that when they fall off you can pull them apart, and they have like this filament type stuff inside of them. They look like little alien pods or something, but that's what these tree trunks reminded me of, was those trees. All right, another one that I thought was going to end up being a primer. I thought that this was my 5th painting of the day, and then when I was halfway through it, I realized, oh, it's my 6th. This is a bonus painting. So purple is a color I don't use a lot. Purple is, it's just not a color that I use a lot. It feels very phony to me. It's beautiful, I love it, but it feels very phony, and because of that, it feels very hard to use. But I wanted to challenge myself to use it anyway, and I thought if I can pull it off, it's going to be really mystical and really cool looking. And again, it's that type of painting that I've been doing, the splash of color in the distance with the tree, the bare trees in front. I thought it would look really cool there. And so I steeled myself to use a color that makes me uncomfortable, and I went for it. And I love, love, love the way this painting turned out. There were definitely some terrifying moments where I thought, oh, I'm about to toss this one. But again, I saw it through to the end, and I'm so happy that I did. The one thing that I wish I would have done here is I wish I would have done some of those little sprays, you know, the little splatters, a little bit of brown toward the bottom, and definitely some purple sprays off of the right-hand side there. There's a hint of it there because of the way I splattered the paint, but I think some of the purple paint kind of sprayed off to the side would have been really, really beautiful. If you've been watercoloring for a while and you know it's something that you like to do and you're okay spending, you know, a few extra bucks on really nice paint, if you're not using Daniel Smith watercolors, you should really do yourself a favor and get some. This is not a sponsored video. This is just me being a complete Daniel Smith watercolor fangirl. I love, love, love them. Those purples that I used, the redder purple, the more magenta one, is quinacridone purple, and the more blue, darker one is called, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, carbazole violet. They are incredible colors. It kind of makes me want to use purple a little bit more, so maybe I will, because I don't know why I buy a bunch of purple, but I don't use it, so I don't know. I'm wooed by it, but then I don't know what to do with it once I have it. See this tree there on the left? It got really weird. The angle of that tree on the far left. And all I did was paint over it. I decided, all right, that's out of here, and painted over it. So, you know, if you're afraid that watercolor is really hard to correct and adjust, it's really not. It's just, you have to know what kind of things to do to correct and adjust. You can't do it the way you do with acrylic a lot of times, most of the time. But there's a couple really simple tricks to correcting watercolor, and I'm going to show you all of those. I know I keep saying that, but we are so close to 30 paintings, and then I'm going to get that video out to you. And there's my rocks again, with the, you know, kind of playing with where the faces of the rocks are. some gouache mixed with some of those colors for some grasses. A little bit of negative painting there to really push those trees out into the foreground. And just some final highlights to really give those tree trunks and the couple of branches a little bit of life, and then I'm done. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching today, everyone. I really appreciate it. And if you are excited to try watercolor, but you don't have any watercolor supplies yet, please don't feel like you have to run out and buy them. Wait until after I do my beginner video, because I will walk you through what kind of things to get so that you can feel a little bit more confident to go out and pick up your supplies. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very, very soon.